organization. And what's so neat is Michael and I, again, pulling back all those years previously, he had been involved in the nonprofit sector, always on the programming side, kind of on the front lines. I've always been involved more in the business and the corporate side. And so it's so neat. He thrives on building programs and casting vision. I love saying now, how do we tell people what we're doing? Where does the money come from? And working in that way. And so, yeah, we work with youth, primarily middle school students, 11 to 14-year-olds, even a little younger, a little older than that. We teach them leadership development, personal character growth, and entrepreneurism. And so I get to have a big part in helping us communicate to our donor audience. We are totally supported, many churches as you are, by passionate and concerned individuals who want to make a difference. And I'm a big believer, this is probably my one soapbox I stand on, is just that I'm a big believer that the church and the role of the nonprofit when it comes to communications is to extend that mission and that value into the hearts of their donors. That's so many donors. I know, Tom, you've worked with hundreds and thousands. I've had a privilege to work with so many as well. They long to be a part on the day-to-day, to be in the mission field, to be in,
correct,
touching people's lives, to be a part of a care ministry. And so many of them can't due to their jobs or their careers or where their lives are at. And so you get the chance through your communication, that's why we're focusing on effective leaders in communication, to say, but your fingerprints are on their lives. That's what you get to do through your giving. That's what you get to do through your support and your involvement in the mission. And I see that as the extension of the heart and the mission, again, of a church or a nonprofit, out to their audience, not only the people they serve within, kind of their programming capacity, but in the larger realm. So that's the part I get to do, and I just absolutely love it.
Well, that's no small role. As you know, all of these folks out there are wearing multiple hats, juggling multiple roles. And you talk about that in some of your presentation material, that's the reality of donor development. Can you speak into that a little bit?
That's a hard reality. Let's just acknowledge that. If you're listening to this today, you are amazing. We know you are tired. You might be, bivocational. You might be full-time, but juggling, like Tom said, like all these different roles. And let's not, diminish how intense that job is, to lead, to communicate, to champion a vision, and then to fund it and take care of it and do all that hard work. And I know it's one thing to stand on a platform and preach. It's another thing to be the last person there vacuuming at the end of the day. Okay. I've been there. I still am there. Yep. My husband does a lot of that stuff too. I mean, it's, it sounds a lot of times more glamorous than it is, but that's the role and that's the job and that's the calling that you've embraced.
Right.
I always get a good laugh. I know this is probably not the most Christian movie to reference, but I always get a laugh when I see a screenshot that I have up in my office of Tom Cruise, and he's got that exasperated look on his face. He's like, show me the money.
Jerry Maguire. Yeah.
You should have a picture. Maybe we should throw it up here in the talk a little bit. But it's just that look of, when it comes to the fundraising side here, just tell me how we're going to keep this thing going. And, where does the budget, what does the rainy day fund look like for so long? And so just want to tell you, you're doing a great job, pastors. You're doing such a great job. It's not easy. But I do believe that there is grace for the calling that's on your life. And I know that that's why Tom and his team and so many of us just want to come alongside to encourage you and equip you, because it's not easy, but we know you can do it.
Well, let's then go into talking about how you coach and teach and train nonprofit leaders on how to communicate with their donors. And I know that something you and I are a lot alike on is that we like to keep the conversation very real. So can you talk about what you've observed in typical communication with donors?
Absolutely. That's a great question. Let's talk on that today here. So for about the first 8 to 10 years of my career, I spent that working full-time for a couple organizations, primarily one significantly, full-time donor development. So I worked with middle to high major donors I will tell you upfront, major donors are a huge part of my personal passion. I just absolutely love working with them. I've written an ebook on how to work with them. And that's just a place, I think just we'll talk a little further even today, just nurturing their heart specifically. So valuing all the donor, but spent the majority, number of years working specifically cultivating relationships. And you're right. They have to be authentic. They have to be relatable. I love to say we move at the speed of relationships. And so the movement of growth in your organization, it comes from the trust that's developed in real and authentic communications. And so I do think that voice needs to extend through your digital communications, but specifically when you're looking at saying, how do I relate with my donors? How do I talk with them? Let's first acknowledge that they're real and that they're human. And so just for fun, I've come up with, I say, 3 different personas. We're all kind of into personas. Facebook's got our avatars everywhere. So if we could say,
so
okay,
you have an image that's the face of each of these donor types?
No, let's flip that. Let's flip it a different way. I have
Okay.
3 different ways that I tend to find an organization approaches their donor communication.
Ah,
So
okay.
can we go there? Is that okay?
Yeah,
Can we talk
yeah,
about that?
absolutely. I
Okay.
just want to make sure we were clear.
Yeah. And again, this is as I can dig into an organization, I can look at some of their voice, some of their tone, some of their style. We're kind of hovering here kind of a little bit more at a paradigm level. It's a little bit more of like a mindset level of how do I talk? Now, real quick, just for context, like we said, you're super busy. And so when we're all really busy, I know you're just trying to get the job done or you're just running off of top of mind. So that's where this little litmus test of these 3 characters, I think, can come into play. So ask
All right.
yourself as we unpack these, maybe which one are you? Okay, let's have a little fun with this. So the first one I like to say is your Chatty Cathy. It's the person who, when you get in front of a supporter who is going to make a great difference for your organization, you just got to get it all in. You want to talk to them about everything. Yeah. It's like you just got this window of time, and you've got to make sure they know what's going on in the church, what the mission stands for, how important they are. Like we're just cramming it all in, right?
Do you think that comes from passion at all?
I think it comes from passion and a tiny bit maybe of fear.
Okay.
I mean,
sure.
that's probably more for a psychologist to dig into, but I do think it's like, what if they stop giving? What if I don't get a chance to meet with them again? They're so busy. A lot of times, people who give at significant levels have incredibly demanding schedules.
Yeah. Right.
And so I feel like sometimes we feel like we have to shove it all in, or we have to justify our value. And so we just cram it all in, we don't realize this is a conversation that gets to happen over time. And just maybe when we flip that perspective, I find a lot of ways they say, oh, that's how we do communicate. Maybe it's a little too much or a little too one directional. I'm not allowing that donor to speak into our story. What do you think, Tom? How does that resonate with you?
I've seen that. Absolutely. I've noticed that a lot of people that are put into this role are one of 2 things. They're either, like you had said, wearing lots of different hats, or there's somebody that was put into that role because they love the ministry that they're connected with and they resonate well with that donor. And that just happens to be the personality, Chatty Cathy, that comes along with it, right? Rather than, for example, in many well-established, well-groomed corporations where that person is actually trained on a process.
Yeah.
Okay.
I also find too, Chatty Cathy's can be almost accidental because they're murky in their messaging or they're messy in their messaging. Okay. And so it's just fragmented. When I don't know really clearly what I'm communicating or what the purpose of this moment is, I just talk. To fill the space. How many of us get awkward with quiet space? So we just
absolutely
keep filling it in. And that's where I feel like whether it's fear or just trying to justify our value, and maybe that leans into confidence. It takes a lot to have confidence in our communications and our leadership. We can realize it's messy, it's overwhelming, it comes across more self-serving, even though that's probably what your intent is not, because it's just running full force into that donor.
Right.
Now the opposite, another persona. So if you're not a chatty,
you've got another one.
Yeah, there's 3 here.
Oh,
There's 3.
cool.
Mm-hmm.
All
So if you're
right.
not the Chatty Cathy, then I like to say you're probably the bus driver Betty, or maybe you're the bus driver Bob. We are going somewhere. This mission has a purpose, and you are either on this bus or you are off this bus. And I
All
find
right.
that tone in communications can be very, very
Okay.
intense.
I give white hanky.
We forget there's a human there sometimes,
Yeah.
and it's powerful. The voice sounds very powerful, but it doesn't always maybe tell the story or allow for the donor's heart to engage, with where they are. It sounds like you are in or you are out, and this
Yeah.
is what we're doing, come hell or high water, right? I like to say these are the churches that are charging hell with a squirt gun. You're like, we are going there,
Oh,
man.
man. Ooh, I like that analogy. Very good.
And that's where you might need to ask yourself, do I take a conversational tone in my communications? Am I speaking at my audience or, with and to my audience? Do they see the beauty and the struggle as we grow forward?
So in marketing, we call that pulling your audience in rather than pushing yourself upon.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly what we're talking about.
All right.
And I think now if you're kind of now you're noodling on this, or the more we're talking, you're like, where do I stand on this, Sayla, Tom? What's going
Yeah.
on?
Yeah.
Maybe go and look at your last, e-newsletter. Maybe go look at your website for a minute. Go take a quick little grunt test on your social media and look at saying, how do I think this starts to sound? Is it this Chatty Cathy cramming it all in? Is it this kind of more intense Lone Ranger tone and this bus driver? You get where I'm going with it?
Yeah.
Okay, or maybe it's our third one. This is one I get really passionate
Wow,
about.
this is exciting. Okay, number 3.
Or is it like, is it the beggar mentality? Is it the I just want to take a few minutes. If I could share this with you, is it apologetic in its tone for saying, maybe I feel bad, for the way that you are, that you feel like you're having to engage or want to talk with your audience. This is our beggar Bob, and so I say that's where, this timid approach that maybe stems from either maybe it's your mindset and how you view, major donors, or how you feel like maybe, I know this is a hot button topic sometimes, is that favoritism and how I speak to them, or, we would be nowhere without them, and just seeing like a lot of that kind of mindset impacts the way we approach. And so, where one tone might be peppy and chatty and one tone might be super direct, this one might be more timid and apologetic and feel like, kind of representing, less, because we need our donors in a way that is kind of demeaning to the mission. Tom, have you ever heard or seen that kind of come out of an organization?
Oh, absolutely. I love your 3 examples here. I think we've run into all of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a believer that, like in a lot of nonprofit setups, their donors sometimes bring this on them. I hate to say that,
Mm-hmm.
but donors don't like to give towards admin costs, but those are realities of operating their business. So for them to get true donor development, developing that mindset, that voice that you talk about, I see that as a huge need out there. Your program is dead on. So you talk about 3 different types. We got a Chatty Cathy that you said that's somebody they got to get it all in, right?
Mm-hmm.
You talked about bus driver Betty and tell them what they need to know. And then beggar Bob, where it feels like it's a burden to be talking to you.
Yeah.
Do we understand those right?
Yeah, you heard it right. I would love to go back here before we end and give everyone a little bit of what they should have, kind of like, okay, if those aren't our voices, what should they be? But before we do that, can we talk a little bit more about beggar Bob? Because I feel like if we were to give this conversation, a title right now, a topic, I think what we're really addressing is smashing this beggar mentality. And if you feel confident and you're listening to this, don't tune out yet. Keep listening, because I feel like we all need lots of places where we can just continue to grow in our confidence, and in our communication, with that. But on the flip side, let's just take a minute and let's address it, because I don't see that being addressed in a lot of places. And I feel like a lot of pastors and leaders feel like they need to be confident, but sometimes they don't really understand what's behind it, or that that's something they're really struggling with.
All right.
Okay.
Very good.
So can we have some fun? Kind of share a little story?
We do. I'd love the
Okay.
fun.
This is really passionate in my heart, as you can tell, because it's really real in my heart. For those years working, with major donors in donor development, I feel like the Lord gave me this moment. It's a moment in time that has forever kind of branded itself onto me, because I have carried this defining moment then through like so many points in my career. So let me just take a moment and share this story and make it really relatable. Because again, I talk to a lot of people in development and they just sound like they've got it all together. And we all want to sound like we got it all together, but let's be honest, we got our stripes somewhere, right? We had to learn this. And so
yes, we did.
I wouldn't say that I necessarily really ever, to my remembrance, remember wrestling with maybe feeling inferior to people who are high wealth or high status. I've worked with people in all different levels of local and state government. I've worked with major football players, professional football players, major baseball players, Forbes ranked millionaires, Forbes ranked billionaires. So I've had this stretch. I love all these people. I wouldn't say necessarily I felt like this need to, feel more worthy around them, but this moment came to light. So I was sitting in my office one day. This was in St. Louis, Missouri. At the time, I worked with a national, international nonprofit organization that worked with helping young women come through really horrific things in their past and set their courses back into a place of health as they continued on in their lives. And so a part of my role with working with donors was to be on hand. If our founder wasn't able to speak somewhere, I was kind of one of the next phone calls. And so my phone rang one day, picked up the phone. This woman's talking on the other phone, starting to explain this opportunity that's coming up for this women's event, and they're looking for a speaker to come and share about this mission to this group. It's going to be a kind of an awareness and fundraising event. And all of her words went to a total blur as I heard her say the event would be located in Beverly Hills 90210. I heard nothing else after that, Tom. I said,
sure.
Yes, I will be there. Sign me up on the
Yep.
next plane. Glad to come. And then I would like to say I was professional enough to start working on my talking points and really preparing that presentation. No. I started thinking, what am I going to wear to this, it was a garden party in Beverly Hills, and the mayor's wife was going to be there, all these influential people. And I thought, forget the talking points. What do you wear? Do I wear, wedges? Because if it's grass, stilettos will fall through the grass. I know pastors are probably going, what? Where's the story going, right? So I got my act together, got my outfit together, show up that day. I kid you not, my little Toyota Corolla rental car, right, pulls up to this ginormous mansion. It was like the size of like a square block in Beverly Hills, just gorgeous, right? I park on the street. I get out of the car. I kid you not. Thankfully, I had on my big sunglasses, because everyone in LA wears your big glasses, right?
Right.
As I'm walking from my little rental car to this ginormous mansion, I kid you not, it was so perfectly timed. The red double-decker tour bus turns the corner to come up the street. Like all the people with their, I think like Beyonce lived up the street or something, right? And I am just walking in like I own here, right? They're all taking pictures. I walk into this gorgeous home. Absolutely stunning. Just dozens of women from all different places of influence and class and status in that community. Just the most beautiful spread. The hostess was so delightful to set this all up so that we could truly present the heart of our organization and inspire these women to take action. And so I'm mingling with the women, and I'm kind of sitting on this, again, gorgeous couch. I'm seeing labels from all the stores on Rodeo Drive. I can literally pick them out, from this purse to this outfit. I can just see just dripping in, all the stature of Beverly Hills. And so I'm sitting next to this woman and we're chatting. I'm trying to make sure I don't have broccoli in my teeth, like I'm about to speak here, and just enjoying this conversation with her. She's just literally stunning. Like, looks like she walked off a magazine cover, right? So we're having this little chat, and she so sweetly leans over and kind of just subtly whispers, and she's like, "Oh, I love your shoes." And I don't know about you, Tom, but oh my God, it's my red hair. I blame it on that. Have you ever had words that just started rolling out of your mouth, and you're inside of you, you're screaming, no,
Absolutely. Yeah.
back in. And without even thinking, I just say, thanks. I got them at Target. Target, Tom. I died this huge.
No, Selah, she's thinking, good. She's a miser with my donor money.
Yes. My pride was hurt.
Us marketers always come up with a spin on everything, you know.
Yes. That's a great spin, by the way. Yes. And so I was just so mortified. Why did I even say that? Literally in that moment. Timing couldn't have been more perfect. The hostess was just standing up to say, ladies, welcome Selah Hirsch. She's here to speak with us today. I gathered what shards of pride I had left in my Target shoes next to her, like Louboutins, right? And I stand up there and pull myself together. And thankfully was able to, effectively share my heart, share the heart of the founder and the message. But here's the part that I'll never forget as we start to unpack this smashing this beggar mentality. That same woman came up to me after I was speaking. And I still remember that look in her face because, just mascara running down her cheeks. Probably the most expensive mascara, probably more than my Toyota rental car, right? Or something. Just pouring down her cheeks, right? She could have cared less what she looked like in that moment. She grabbed me by the hand and began to share with me her story of how she was treated or how she'd experienced sexual abuse and how her heart was to help young women who had felt like they were victims and to see that they did not have to live their life that way, that there was hope for them. And just what I realized in that moment is, regardless of where we stand, regardless of what's in my bank account to her bank account, to what my zip code is, to what her zip code is, none of that matters. Because when we work in a way that communicates effectively and confidently with donors, this is what happens. We stand heart to heart with them on the same battlefield to make a difference for the kingdom. And nothing else matters. And I believe to donors, nothing else matters. Again, I'm talking in principle here. They want to know that they stand with you to make a difference.
That's right.
And that nothing else needs to qualify you. You don't need to gain their approvals any more than helping them realize that that is what they get to do through their giving.
I find that the great ones at this level are people that truly feel connected to your cause. Mm-hmm. Some people may call that a mission or however you want to phrase that. Mm-hmm. That's really what they're after. And then you and your presentation and you representing that foundation or that church is their personal connection and ability to relate with where you kind of pointed out to these 3 different personalities that needs to tie in with what you talk about the connection at the mission level. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And then when those come together, that's when you tend to draw in and build on that relationship beyond the first gift.
Oh, absolutely. And we can talk about that maybe in another talk too, is how to, it's one thing to have a mindset shift. Now tell me more how we do it.
Yeah.
But let me just say this for you so you hear this first. Your role, is to not to diminish their contribution experience through a timid approach. So just realizing that when I go to communicate, yes, it's on behalf of our mission, but it's so that they have that value and that they see that this is what they're a part of. And
Boy, Selah, that's some words of wisdom right there.
It is. And we're all learning and continuing to grow in it. It's not like you achieve this. I feel like it's just a way that we're all saying, okay, I need to continue to invest time, to grow in my tactical donor development, in my strategic, in my mindset. You as a communicator will impact all of that. And then how we do that, I think maybe we'll save that for another conversation, but how do you identify donor motivation?
Wait a minute, Selah. You mean you're going to give our audience all of these fantastic pointers,
I'd
and you're
love
willing to
to.
come back and talk some more and deeper?
I think we should. There's a
That's
whole lot of
fantastic.
ways
Thank
to
you.
break this down. Today's
Thank
just
you.
talking, kind of at a heart level. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But here's one thing we can give you from today. So let's bubble
Okay.
back up for a minute to our three personas.
All right.
We looked at them through the lens of what can be, clunky and cumbersome and not appealing to your donors. But where are the good attributes from those? I say it's kind of finding that right balancing point. And so for the Chatty Cathy, she, what we're going to pull from her is that we need to make sure we are communicating colorfully. We need to have a level of narrative and of story. We can't just be, information driven. We're about to get there in a second, but we need to make sure we're taking, the people who give to your church onto a story in a way that they see that there is, where's their context for story? It's in emotion, it's in transformation. A lot of times that persona is talking all over the place. We want to take them on a narrative and a journey of seeing their impact. And then from our bus driver, Betty, we don't want to take them somewhere that just is all happy feeler. We need to ground it in information, in testimonials and metrics and in critical details that don't just make us sound like a bunch of zealots, that just feel good, but we're really grounded because every story, in fact, I like to say good storytellers are great teachers, not great preachers. So we want to take that narrative and that story of impact and drive it somewhere to where it makes a point. And it's really can be, again, trusted. I don't think you can ever be too careful with building trust when you're asking people to give to something. Generosity follows trust. And then with Beggar Bob, I'm going to flip him on his head. In fact, I have this cute little dwarf. I should have brought him. He's been so cute. He's one of those little gnomes at Christmas time. I keep him for my Beggar Bob thoughts. I say you lead with a heart of humility, and that honor paves the way forward. And I do believe that there is a tone of honor that comes through donors, donor communications, especially if you're working with people who are of high status and high capacity, that acknowledges who they are. It acknowledges how critical they are to the mission, not in a way that, again, is lesser, but in a way that is truly shoulders back, confident, eye to eye and heart to heart and toe to toe on this mission field together to make a difference. And when you lead with a point of honor, we can unpack that more specifically another day, but I do believe it opens doors into people's hearts that is lasting.
All right. So when I first saw your different types of people responsible for donor development and engagement within a nonprofit, my first reaction wasn't necessarily that there was all negative styles of people, as some people in an audience might take a look at that as. I looked at it as, each of those different types have strengths that can be molded, managed, shaped, enhance what they're really good at. Mm-hmm. Never ask them to do something that doesn't fit within their style. Mm-hmm. Because I find in most of these organizations that a lot of times that was a donor or sponsor or volunteer that kind of came into that position, not that they were groomed for that position.
Yeah.
Is this resonate with you? Do you see
Absolutely.
That quite often?
Mm-hmm.
So you would kind of suggest that you were to not necessarily change that person's perspective or their style, mm-hmm. but to mold it and manage it into great donor relations.
Absolutely, because every brand and every organization has a unique voice and personality.
Okay.
We don't want everyone to sound the same. And so you're right. You need to see where you're at now. And again, that might even be, I feel like that's even another conversation too, which is how do I become even more distinct in that? What do I take that is the actual language we use or the style which we use to communicate, or some of what is, in our tone. I mean, there's so many little inflections and nuances that are different, and your people are going to love that about you. They're going to see that that's your style. We don't want to blend it all to where it's generic. I think we just need to, number one, always have a level of self-awareness in our communications.
Okay.
We just need to always be self-aware. If I'd gotten on and talked this entire time and never, asked Tom, it would just been a turnoff. And so like, you need to be self-aware. What is the tone? What is required here? Number two, where am I, maybe you live and breathe this mission every day more than a donor does. I mean, keep in mind that your communications, your, in-person participation, pops in and out of their calendar. It comes across my email box or in my social media feed, or when I know I'm going to maybe see you or attend an event. So you're just in and out in their lives versus you're in this, in your heart, in your life, in your head every day. That's where I feel like we just need to be sensitive to knowing when I engage with you, am I taking you somewhere that is the right place versus just, constantly just driving towards what I desire. So self-awareness, awareness of where you intersect with the donor journey, and then ultimately you want to stand out and shine. I mean, that's what we all need to do here. We need our donors to know what's so special about you and how much you care and the style of what you have. And so by all means, leverage those strengths and own them and make them your own, and just make sure that you're just always having a little wiggle room with that self-awareness to bring in other people or not lose people maybe, in your communication.
I really like how you put that. That's a great message. So Selah, thanks for joining us. We've got maybe a minute or two left. If there's anything that maybe you'd like to give our viewers a nice little pro tip from you, what would you want them to take away from this conversation? Maybe a little piece of action for them to go work on.
Okay, piece of action. Let's go there. I would say in just this conversation for a second and ask you, where does it resonate with you? I find that when I'm listening to podcasts, reading books, a part of, conference events, there is something that's jumping out at me, okay? That maybe your attention is tuning in and out through this whole conversation. What kind of brought it back into focus maybe a little bit here? And say, okay, now with that, what is an action I can take that moves the needle forward, specifically maybe to cultivate and nurture those hearts of our significant givers in our church? And so I would just do a quick either litmus test in your communications and say, oh, you know what, we need a little bit more story, or we need a little bit more guided direction to this. Just moving the needle is all we're trying to do.
Do you think that's possible to be done internally?
Ooh, I don't know, Tom. Do you think it's possible?
That might be another conversation someday, huh?
What did you say?
Maybe another conversation.
I think
someday.
Another conversation, yeah.
It's just what I think of. I mean, I think all of us, whether it's personal communications, business communications, one of the advantages of a third party is a fresh set of eyes.
Yeah, that's very true. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
so then I'll give you one last action item here.
All right.
Pick up the phone and call one of your key donors who you maybe haven't talked to. Maybe, again, you were intimidated. Maybe you don't know them very well. Maybe you just think they're too busy or wouldn't want to talk to you. Smash the beggar mentality will be our takeaway today. Pick up the phone, call and tell them that they were on your heart and that you wanted to simply call to let them know how much you appreciate them.
No motive, no drive, no ask, just how you doing?
Yeah, how are you doing? And we appreciate you and we value you. That's what the others, it's not just a, how are you doing? Talk to you later, but how are you doing? And then let me just tell you how much we appreciate you. Let me just tell you how, we couldn't do what we do without you and how that much that means to us and that we're praying for you. Have a great day. You can leave it on a voicemail. Don't worry, you can leave it on voicemail, but just pick up the phone and challenge yourself to engage more personally with your major donor audience.
That's great advice. Hey, Selah, thanks for joining us, and thanks for taking time out of what I know is a very busy business life, personal life, taking care of Michael and the kids. Boy, what don't you do? I hope you come back, and I hope we can have another one of these conversations. I think you bring a lot of value to the table. Love your perspective. It's been great working with you over the years. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having me. Pastors, be encouraged. You're doing a great job.
One last question. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you, what's the best way?
Absolutely. My business is Pipelime. That's Pipelime. So you can go to pipelime.com, and we would love to explore just where you are at in your voice and in your tone and your messaging, and see if anything we can do to encourage you just in how you're communicating to your donors.
Thank you very much, Selah.
Thanks.